They say a successful marriage is the sum of repetitive, small efforts focused on showing love and appreciation. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of They Say It Takes a Village. Today, I'm joined with a very talented digital creator, Carly Neave. She's a mom of 2 boys and an absolute inspiration, and we are here to talk about relationships. Specifically relationships after baby, the highs, the lows, and absolutely everything in between. So without further ado, Carly.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here and
you for
taking the
having
time
me.
out to talk to me.
My pleasure. You've had so many amazing guests and friends on, so
Yeah.
I'm really excited to
Me
dive in. This is
too.
one of my favorite topics. So,
I think
yeah, I'm looking forward to
everybody, is quite intrigued, in the sense that, you become a mom and then you think, is everybody going through the same thing
Yeah.
as me?
Yeah.
And it's that level of validation that you think, okay, no, we're fine. That person's having very similar struggles. And I think that goes across all
100%.
all
I think it needs to be
parenting.
talked about. I mean,
100%.
divorce rate,
Yeah.
like all the struggles we go through. I think the more open we are about these conversations and the struggles, the better that we can be in our marriages and relationships. So,
Absolutely.
I'm no expert, but I
No.
can share my experience.
But
and
that's the
hope that-
thing. It is your experience. And I feel like everyone is going to be an expert in their own relationships and their own marriages. And I mean, at this point in time, you're as good as any, really.
Well, let's see.
Do you-
Let's see where we are.
Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? And how long have you been in the UAE?
So I'm from London
Yep.
originally, south of London, and I moved to Dubai at 21. So I've been here for just coming up to 9-10 years now.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. I don't really. Why I moved here was no specific reason. I was working in London. I was on my 100th job.
Yeah.
I was doing real estate in Holland Park at the time, and life was fine. I was
Happily going along.
yeah, but just kind of ticking along. Money was fine, friends were fine, life was so, but it just felt like I wasn't living life to its fullest potential, and I knew something had to give. So I kind of just a light switched one day, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a move. I'm gonna challenge myself, put myself outside my comfort zone. And honestly, Australia was too far, but Dubai was far enough that it wasn't just I popped down the road to somewhere in Europe. So literally sold my car, had a few $1,000 in the bank, and I was like, okay, I've got 6 months to make something work in Dubai. Let's see what happens.
Oh, brilliant. So you literally packed up and moved out here.
Yeah, it was quite quick. And I think the real tell was that when I told my parents I was going to go, they were like, I think that's a really good idea. And I think when people who were so close and obviously you hope don't want to lose your presence say, I think you need that.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of an indication okay, this is the right thing for me to do right now. I wasn't particularly lost or struggling. It's just, I don't know. I think growing up, I'd always been given that, what's the phrase? That kind of pink slip of a little bit of the underachiever, potentially academically. And I just didn't want to live up to that expectation.
Yeah.
And I wanted something more than just kind of doing real estate. Not that real estate isn't an amazing job, but I was doing it just mediocrely and just,
But it's nice also at that point, you're young, you're super flexible to start something new, but it is brave, it's a sort of pack up and leave friends and family.
I guess I was driven more by the fear of my life looking like it was going to look forevermore of the next 20 years. So it was, and also you do always have home to go back to.
Absolutely.
Worst case scenario, if
it doesn't work
find
out.
a job, if I couldn't, then I could come back. But obviously 10 years later, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So
brilliant. And so that's it. This is home potentially.
This is
Second
home
home?
for the long foreseeable future. I think I would love to make a move to Europe at some point, maybe Spain. I don't know. But yeah, I met Jack in my first.
I was going to say that was my first question. Let me take you all the way back. How did you guys meet?
So we met on my first weekend in Dubai. It was Facebook at the time. I didn't know anyone. But a guy friend of mine had been on holiday a few months before, and he had said, "Oh, I met this girl called Charlotte. Go and introduce yourself." So I messaged her on Facebook and said, "Hi, I'm new here. Can I come meet you for a coffee?" Anyway, she invited me for some drinks, and Jack was one of those guys at the drinks.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was in a really powerful like space in my life at that time. I had moved for me and I was scared, but I was excited. And my approach to, I guess, meeting someone felt quite different. So for me, it was pretty much like love at first sight in the really cliche sense. But we started, we hung out a lot very quickly. I asked him on our first date the weekend after we met, and I fell in love. I fell in love very quickly with him. And I thought he was kind of doing the same thing. But then two months in, he'd just come out of a really long-term serious relationship. And 2 months in, I was fully in love, ready to make it official.
Yeah.
And I caught myself like at nighttime being like, I love you, but like, and then not hearing it back a few times. And I was like, this is getting a bit awkward. But it just came so naturally.
Yeah.
And, like,
but you don't want to stop it. Yeah.
No, exactly. And it wasn't even something I was conscious of. It was just a feeling that was so real. And he kind of said, look, I love you and I love spending time with you. I didn't say I love you. I love spending time with you and I love what's going on, but I'm not ready to make it official. And I was like, okay, well, I'm out. And I think that for me was any other time in my life that a guy might have said that, I would have kind of probably been like, okay, I'll give him a little bit more time, or like, we'll see what happens.
But you sort of put your foot down. That's not what I need.
Was like, you know what? I'm fully in.
Yeah.
I love you. I want to be with you. But if you're not, then okay. And like, I'm not gonna push it to that standard and like and put myself through something that I feel like I deserve better. Yeah. So I think the move kind of compounded probably how quick Jack and I moved, because he came back a few weeks later of me going like, I'm out. And then it was kind of just, okay, well, let's get the ball rolling, and we're in. He was like, okay, I'm in. So then it all happened quite quickly in terms of marriage and babies and all the rest of it.
Oh, that's so lovely. Yeah. That's the thing. I feel like, it's funny because it's a horrible thing to say, but you kind of say no right at the start. Like, I'm not going to sit and play games. Yeah. And then it's that realization like, okay, well, I can't really just do whatever I want. And then, once they have a bit of a think, they think, oh, well, I probably have screwed that one up a little bit. And so let's say, you guys got married, and then what was your journey into motherhood?
So I met him at 21, and then we got married.
That's quite young.
Yeah, I was, I guess, a baby, but I think the move and, I had left uni for a boy when I was like halfway into my first term, and I'd started work. And as I said, I had like 100 jobs. So I feel like I had grown up quite quickly. Yeah. So I didn't feel like a baby, but in hindsight, we have developed as a relationship from very early doors. He was 23, 24.
He's quite young too. Yeah.
So we got married a few years later. Yeah. And I had my first son at 27. Okay. So, and then Arlo came quickly after that.
And now Arlo is how old now?
Arlo is 18 months and Alfie is 3. Oh,
brilliant. It's tough ages though.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's full on.
It's full on, but they're very cute at that age.
And I hope that it will get easier and they will become the best of friends. And I had a sister who was 18 months apart from me, and she's out here now actually with her little son, and her cousins are around each other, and it's really sweet. It's hard.
Yeah. We'll get there. I mean, that's the thing. It's hard at the start, but honestly, mine are 3 years apart. Now looking back, I think I just wasn't ready to have them sort of back to back. But I kind of wish I did,
I don't know. I
feel like you were in the baby phase. Like,
I would love to have a third. Jack's not so keen. It's one of the few dilemmas we have at the moment. Yeah. But if we do have a third, it would be a lot
later.
It would be a lot later. Yeah. I think it does make life a little bit easier potentially.
I don't know.
Every type of like motherhood is hard, no matter how old your kids are. But
absolutely.
Yeah, the 18-month age gap was like I had 2 babies. And they were
very, very young. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, obviously we're talking about relationships.
Yeah.
And, I don't know about you, but for me, I felt like there was a massive shift. As soon as I had a baby, there's this almost like shift in relationship dynamic. It was almost immediate.
Yeah.
I felt like I was blinded with all the responsibility. And very, very early on, of course, and this is when the dust settles, after you get back home, after he went back to work, after the visitors stopped, and, it's just you and the baby.
Yeah.
The relationship I felt was, Nasser would leave and go to the office, and he'd grab his coffee on the way, and I'm stuck home with this little baby that I couldn't even shower properly because I couldn't keep my eyes off him. So very early on, I felt that there was a relationship shift. And I felt that there was, in terms of like a compromise, I felt that all the responsibility was on me, especially when it's those early days.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way? What was like the biggest thing that you felt that you had to compromise after having a baby?
So we didn't have it quite the same setup. We had Alfie in the middle of the pandemic. So Jack didn't go back to work. He was working from our kitchen table for the best part of 6 months, really.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It was really helpful to have that. And I don't know how I would have felt about him, as you say, like picking up his coffee and then going to work and then saying like, okay, see you later. And it does feel like you would be stuck with that child.
And you are stuck
by yourself. Yeah.
And you're waiting for them to come home. And the moment they walk in through the door, it's like, oh my God, adult.
Here's your child.
It's either here's your child or please, can you have a conversation with me? I can't keep shaking a rattle in front of this baby kind of thing. And I love them to bits, but
No, I don't. I think this whole thing of, needing to enjoy, or you should be enjoying that playtime on the floor for hours on end, is not fair. Like it's not fun, and we feel guilty for not loving that, but it's not hugely stimulating as an adult. So, but sorry. So back to your question, I think we had a slightly different kind of intro into parenthood. What do we have to compromise on? I think, I think there's obvious ones. There's the time we have together, intimacy, sex life, like that has obviously kind of changed massively since having children. Tiredness. We unfortunately, I feel like you either marry someone who is like really good on lack of sleep, and you have one person who's not. We are both really not good on lack of sleep.
Same.
And that has been the biggest, probably like reason for arguments and friction in our relationship. But I don't know, I think kind of coming away from the obvious ones, I came from parents who broke up when they were 13, but I didn't see it coming. They were like in a really lovely relationship. They would smile, they would laugh, they never, argued in front of me. So I kind of felt like
you're
overnight,
blindsided.
Yeah, I was blindsided by it. And I think that developed a little bit of a fear inside me that things can crumble overnight. And I've definitely taken that into my relationship as a wife to be, I'm scared of it. Like I'm scared of, if we have an argument about this one night, does that mean that this part of our relationship is dying and this part is, falling?
Do you know, Carly, it's not just you. I mean, my parents have been together for almost 30, how old am I?
That's
almost
impressive.
40 years. But I still have those feelings too.
Yeah.
I think, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, I think everybody has that.
Yeah.
To think, you have this argument and you think, oh my God, this part of our relationship is not working and that part isn't working, and what does that mean? Is this a sign of something?
It's a sign that things are going downhill. So, but I've learned that, whilst ultimately you want to, majority of the time, be happy and in love and things be wonderful, I guess I've kind of compromised on that belief that not every day has to be perfect. Not every day has to be like dancing around in circles together. And that's okay.
The most romantic day on earth.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So we're getting there. It still comes up, but
I feel like I'm going to ask you personal questions.
Go for it.
Are you sure?
Yes. Okay. I'm open book. Let's go.
In the case of sort of, for example, your arguments, and I'm only saying that because honestly, it's even making me feel better, because to hear that somebody else, and again, we talk to our, friends and things like that, but we may not go into detail like, oh, Nasser did this and we argued and da, da, da. So for your case, your arguments, do they have a common theme? And I'm only specifically talking about the period of life after having children.
After having children.
Yeah.
I think we butted heads quite a bit on how we were with Alfie in terms of like our parenting style. I felt like I carried the strict, like, what's the word called? The torch quite a few of the times. Yeah. And I remember almost my mum like growing up and saying like, I always have to be the bad guy. And I just have this real thing about not wanting to be that person. And sometimes Jack is like this most like level-headed, peaceful guy that just has the patience of a saint, which I don't. And I guess sometimes like I'm like, well, why aren't you losing it with him? Or like that makes me sound like a really bad mom, but like, can you step up and like correct this behavior rather than it just being me the whole time?
Yeah.
So that's something that we tend to kind of we've learned along kind of the 3 years since Alfie's been here, but it's just a dance. Like, it's a dance the whole time. If I was to say anything like that to Jack, he takes that quite personally. You know, he then thinks that's a reflection on him as a father, as we also do as like when anything gets said about us as mothers, we think, well, then I'm a bad mom, I'm this, I'm that.
Yeah.
And I have to work on like my delivery with things and how we kind of heal from an argument. Like my thing is, well, if I'm sad about something and upset, just give me a big bear hug and I'll be fine. It makes it all better. But putting out that olive branch, that move, like that actual physical move of coming to that person, giving them a hug, like making it better, is really hard when you're in a state of just
rage,
anger.
Same.
We actually,
it's not a light switch. I can't.
No, it's really
it takes
difficult.
me a while, and that's something that I'm the exact same. I feel like it's something that I need to work on.
My I mean, they didn't last, sadly, but my parents did this thing called the bear wiggle, where so much of changing your emotional state is about changing your physical state. And Jack and I developed that into our own one, which was like an elephant. I remember doing it on my wedding day when my dad brought it up in my speech, his speech. And so whenever they get in an argument and they need to shake it out, they would actually do like a full-on bear wiggle and like shake their butts together. And
that's
what happens
really
is
cute.
you just
and you laugh
can't help
anyway.
but laugh.
Yeah.
You can't help but laugh. And all of a sudden, all these walls of like anger and annoyance about that situation just come falling down. So we have our own silly like elephant, which fortunately we don't have to use that much, but sometimes he has stood up in a restaurant and like blown an elephant trumpet and I've been totally mortified, but I just burst out laughing and I just thought, you know what, thank you, because I was not able to get out of that state and I needed you to do that for us. So
that's actually that's so helpful, because it's almost like it's like a safe word.
It is.
And it's when things are getting not in a good space, just to kind of one of you break out and 100%. Do something to kind of
communicate when you're in that space.
No. And that's, I find, again, and the arguments, I guess, even for me, sort of common arguments are always about uneven responsibilities.
That's another big one.
I carry the brunt. And he's a great dad, very, very, very hands-on, but it's just the way it is. I mean, even with me, I'm a bit more flexible. So I tend to take on more with the kids. And, you know, for him, it's work, and he comes home and he does whatever he can. And I'm not going to compromise, for example, on bedtime. They're not going to stay up later just because they've got time with dad. So for me, the arguments are, like, in hindsight, silly, and they're not over big things. But I'm so sort of involved. I can't even swim up to the surface because I'm just so taken aback by whatever was said, and it's usually about what that person's saying to the other person. But I'm saying this now completely cool, calm, like we're sitting having a conversation, but throw me in an argument and it's very difficult for me to kind of do a bear wiggle or whatever it is.
I mean, I do think a night's sleep helps a lot of things.
Absolutely.
We're big spare room sleepers. Like, maybe not by his choice, but I would, you know, they say never go to bed in an argument. I just think that sometimes it's an unachievable standard.
Absolutely.
And the last thing I want to do is be sleeping next to someone who there is tension there. I feel like I can't sleep. It changes. So many times I will say to him, like, a lot of times when there's arguments.
Whenever there is an argument,
I'll say, like, let's just cool off. Let's like have a night separate. You go in the spare room, I'll go here. And in the morning, it's just
better.
It's like, like water. It's done because I've let go of like any anger and same with him. And it's just, sometimes you don't need to hash out every single thing. And I think I've learned that along the way. Like, I was a big person to say, like, well, no, we need to like understand why that happened and we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. But sometimes for the small stuff,
just let it go.
Just let it go. And that's been a bit of a learning curve for me. But it's helped along the way.
It's good. It's not easy. At the end of the day, I find marriage and kids, because at the end, I don't know, you're so heavily invested in everything they do, their mind, body, and their soul. So you take everything super personal, no matter what it is. And it's just, I think there are two different types of people. My husband is more, let's talk about it. Let's, do things that are going to fix it. He's very quick to want to get to a resolution.
That's great.
Whereas for me, I'm a bit like, let's just take a break. Let me calm down, because I can't
you don't want to say anything
that I don't mean. And then what happens if I say something I don't mean? The argument completely changes course. And I could be making a very valid point earlier, but I've said something stupid and I'm like, oh God, now we're going to have to talk about that. So I kind of dig my own hole or whatever it is. So I'm more, let's take a break, and I don't know, it's finding that happy medium.
Yeah, and it's about understanding what that other person needs. Like, it's not a reflection on, you saying that you need that space. It's not a reflection on you not loving or wanting to like talk to your husband. It's just you saying like, this is what I think is best for this situation right now, and him respecting that. But if there's times where he's like, no, we need to talk about this because it's really upset me.
Yeah.
You're going to have to bend that way.
Absolutely.
And it's just this like constant dance between the two of you, which never stops.
No.
And nor should it.
It shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't. I feel you and Jack, I mean, from again, I've seen you guys out a couple of times, and we have a very similar social circle, I guess. You guys seem really solid. Like, I don't know. You can tell, and you guys make time for each other, and I don't know. I guess that's what I'm seeing. How do you actually prioritize that? How do you prioritize making time for one another?
So I think the importance of making time for one another came from realizing how bad we got when we stopped.
Yeah.
Being intimate with each other is a big thing. And again, I mean, it shows you how much comes from your parenting. But like, I always remember my mom saying to me, like, we just kind of became best friends. And like that side of things is really important. Otherwise, you are just, two
roommates.
Really great friends. Yeah, exactly. Kind of functioning together. And it's, you treat your roommate differently to the way you treat, an intimate partner.
Absolutely.
And I think, there are a few times where, you're exhausted, you haven't had any time together, and you start getting really just pernickety and aggy about the little things, and you're like, oh, we haven't had sex for 4 weeks. Maybe that's like why. Maybe something needs to like shift there.
Yeah.
So I think, and whether it be a dinner or we've since having the kids, we've been away I think now 3 times, just the two of us, and
I feel that's really important as well.
Yeah, I was scared to share that on social media. Like, I was scared of the judgment of what people would say, leaving your children with grandparents and stuff. But I needed it. Like, my relationship with Jack is so important to me as much as my relationship with my children. Absolutely. That I'm like, this deserves the time. And I know that when we come back from a few days away together, we are different people. We are us again, because as amazing as children are, you do have a lot less freedom, and a lot less freedom to just like be your selves that just think about the other person and not like what's on the plates for the children's dinner and what time we've got to get back for bedtime and all the rest of it. So I think it was born out of realizing that we weren't our best selves when we didn't have that time together, and we prioritize it as much as we can. We get into we've started taking up paddle quite a lot, which we get to play as a couple, but we get to play with other people as well. So it's social. But we do, I think in Dubai, you kind of fall into a trap of when you go out for dinner, it's so easy to be like, right, we'll go out to dinner with these friends and these friends. Yeah. And like months will go by and I'm like, we haven't had dinner, the two of us, in forever. And you don't get the time to talk. You just to kind of really check in with that person and ask how they are and what's going on, because we recently went away and we had a few conversations about relationships and work and, intimacy and all those things. And I'm like, that is never a conversation that you have after putting the kids down at bed at 7:30 at night. Never. It just doesn't happen. Absolutely. You don't have the energy for it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think we've realized it's a must. Yeah. It's a necessity for us to be our best selves.
And the thing is, you as a couple, together is the best thing for your family.
Yeah.
Happy.
As long as you're happy. Yeah. And I think there's a case to kind of be said that, if you're not, if happiest, like non-happy together is not always the best case scenario. Absolutely. For children.
Yeah.
But I guess that's very situational.
But it's so funny you said that. It's so true. After bedtime, I'm not talking about these big life things. I'm talking about the day-to-day. We kind of do a quick check-in, and majority of the time he's exhausted, I'm exhausted. Yeah. We might watch something on Netflix, have our dinner, and by 9:45 we're out.
That is it. I saw something on social media and it said, like, we spend like 90% of our time with our better halves after children, eating or like watching TV and then just sleeping. And that was just like quite, I don't know if it was that exact statistic, but it was just a bit shocking to think you don't actually spend that free time together.
But you don't, unless the kids are not there. I know it's so bad to say.
No, it's true. It's true.
But unless the kids aren't there, even for us, I mean, even over the weekends, if we go out to breakfast or at the beach,
Yeah.
kids at very, very young ages need to be constantly sort of
Yeah.
tended to. So big conversations like, where do we see ourselves? What could potentially make our relationship
Yeah.
grow in that direction, to actually do a little bit of a dissection on things that you
100%.
want, are not going to be around children.
No.
So unless you have taken the 3 or 4 days out, just you two, I think it should be a mandatory thing for couples once a year, or if you can, if you're lucky enough to do it twice a year, a few days away from them,
Yeah.
just to kind of go back to each other.
I think it is that night sleep away.
Yeah.
I think that is the real difference.
Yeah.
And you know, as you say, it's not always the case that people can do that. But if you can, like,
Yeah.
rope in your grandparent or a sister,
yeah.
or if you've got a nanny or like whoever to help you have that night away, it's just, I think people feel guilty about it, but
Yeah.
the kids are fine.
Kids are fine.
They're okay.
And even,
Like,
okay, let's say they don't have the ability, even maybe just that day,
Yeah.
you know, a full day, not a morning. Like, let's say you've got somebody somewhere else and they've got a babysitter.
Yeah.
Bring the babysitter in at like 9 a.m., let them leave at 6.
Yeah.
You've got that whole day to kind of just connect with your husband, have a lunch or a breakfast or whatever it is that you want, and have the conversation flow without it halfway interrupting. I find this
Yeah.
happens to me a lot. We can start at pretty important conversations. Usually all our conversations are in the bathroom.
Yeah.
One of us is taking a shower
Yeah.
and the other person is getting ready.
Yeah.
Usually the door is closed. The moment breakfast is done or whatever it is, you can hear kids are running into our room. Whatever we were, that chapter of that conversation, the door is open and that conversation's almost disappeared.
Yeah, and then you kind of think, well,
You can't
what's
really-
even the point of starting it? It's just,
Exactly.
we're never going to kind of.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we try to check in a lot, and I don't know. For me, it's not even about the big check-ins. It's about the kind of day-to-day small acts that I make sure that we maintain. I don't really know how to describe it, but I feel like appreciation is a really big thing for us in the relationship. But I think the minute you stop appreciating what that person does for you, I think you start to get into trouble in terms of how successful the relationship might be. Because when you appreciate what someone's doing for you, it means you're seeing it. It means you're seeing them and what they're trying. And it becomes like a self-fulfilling cycle. You know, they are big, like, silly things for us. He gets me a glass of water at night. When he's filling up his, he gets me mine. And we went for a little stage where he stopped getting me mine.
And you're like, what's going
So then
on?
I stopped, you know, I don't know, whatever it might be. And I stopped putting the toothpaste like out for him in the evening after I finished it. And it's just like, it really quickly goes downhill. If they're not going to do that, then I'm not going to do that. And it's not even conscious thoughts.
Yeah.
But
They creep in,
Yeah,
you
they
dismiss
do.
it, but they're kind of like hanging
Yeah.
around in there. Yeah.
But if you just, I think if you remember them and appreciate them, then you want to do that for your better half as well, to make their life a bit easier and happier every step along the way. So
Yeah. I feel like that kind of paved the way for the next questions. Anything that you guys do regularly to make each other seen and feel heard and I guess appreciated. Practical tips for
Practical
everybody.
tips.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Or I guess it's more, it's so subjective. It can't be just like things that work for you may not work for somebody else.
Yeah. I think it is the little dances around. When we went through a stage, like, he would walk into the door and he would say hi to the kids straight away and not kiss me.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, Daddy's home. And little, like, before I knew it, we were up doing bath time together and I hadn't even said hi to him.
Yeah.
And
That's, I think the majority of homes are like that until you make a conscious effort.
yeah. And he's a really involved dad. He's great. And somewhere along the line, I missed the fact that he likes to also, like, have that be recognized. Like, I think men are seen as obviously less emotional than us as women, and so it's important. I feel like he got the fact that it was important to me to say, like, oh, you're a great mom, or thanks for doing that, or thanks for doing this. But I actually kind of forgot until he pointed it out to me that I never say that stuff to him. So I don't know if it's like, things that we practice once a month. We don't kind of sit out and on like the first of the month have this big conversation. when we have the opportunity, when we're away or have a dinner, you know, I will make a point to check in and be like, you know, we'll have a few glasses of wine and be like, so, you know, it's like, is our sex life everything? Like, is everything going great?
Yeah.
Like,
it's all good
yeah,
here?
like, just, is there anything else? Like,
Yeah.
and you kind of say in like a lighthearted, you make that situation okay. And it's not obviously just about intimacy, but the way I speak to you, the way we engage, all the rest of it. But I think mainly it is those little day-to-day things that have stood us in really good stead. And like, we quickly get back on the cycle of if we feel like we're falling off.
Yeah, that's good. I think appreciation also is a big one. I love it. I feel like I'm okay to take on lots of things as long as I'm seen.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. It is that feeling.
I'm happy to keep going, but not quietly. I just can't, especially not from Nasser. So,
and it's not like you want someone being like
you're the best
dancing in your corner.
No,
it's not that.
It's just a small little thing. Like I see you. Like I really appreciate your effort, or whatever it is. It could be very small, but it's just sometimes you feel really heavy, and just that little bit of appreciation, it really goes a long way.
And I also think being able to, you know, you're talking about like the juggling of roles. I think, I don't know how many men listen to this and then might like hate me for saying this, but I think a lot of the time, classically, a role gets given to a mother, and that mother takes on that role in full.
Yeah.
You know, I do the kids' food. I do the shops. I plan the meals. I cook the food.
Same,
Jack
girl.
doesn't even have to think about it.
Yep, same.
But a lot of the time, when you pass over a job to the dad, a lot of the time that job then involves the mum. So like, you know, the mum will have to kind of say, well, okay, he will check in. Like, okay, I'm whatever. Let's say the dad's taking the kid for a jab. It's like, okay, well, how many jabs have you had? What time's the appointment? Where am I going?
Yeah.
And you don't get to like mentally check out from that situation.
Yeah.
And we've had big discussions around that, and we now have a really like good balance between that. Whether I know when I say to him like, you're this is your job, like this is the blue job, as it were, he fully takes that on, and I don't have to then, I'm not
micromanaging,
constantly like switched on in my head, because it is exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think you need that respite. So
yeah, that's a really good one. Divide jobs that you can actually check out in. Yeah, so don't,
and you trust that person
absolutely
fully to do it, but then they've got to put in the effort to like do it well and do it right, and not just kind of do half-heartedly because I'm like, well, I don't want to do this, she can do it next time. I always remember that when I have a bit of a bad back, and early on in our relationship I'd asked Jack, and like, it's really hurting, would you mind just giving it a bit of a push? And the first few times he did it, he was so bad. He was like, oh, my thumbs are hurting. I'm just like, after like 30 seconds,
it's not worth it. Yeah.
You just don't want to do this. Like, you just don't want to be that person to like take on this role of helping me. And I've learned that, and he doesn't do it. It's something he really doesn't enjoy. And so now when I can, I will check in to get some physio for it, because it's just something that he's just like,
not into.
It's not his strength.
Yeah.
So you got to play to the strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah. It's the same. It's like I think my husband hates going to play areas.
Yeah.
Hates it. But would not mind taking to the beach all day.
Yeah.
Or to the pool.
Oh, the beach is a good one.
The beach is a really good one, because I mean, it's fairly safe. Everyone's happy playing.
No, but I mean, actually, that's pretty impressive from him. I mean, like, that's sand,
I
salty water.
I say that, and I'm kind of always like, okay, everything is ready, everything is organized. I'll see you guys in about 3 hours. So it's not a full thing, but
that's okay.
Yeah,
you can...
but I know he absolutely cannot stand play areas. I mean, I don't like them either, but I think my tolerance has gone up a little bit higher. But so for me to send him to a play area, he would be like, no, I don't want to. Let me take them somewhere else. It's not my thing. Yeah. So find out what kind of sparks joy, I guess, with them, and then delegate as much as possible.
And also like what you need. I think when we don't go, this makes us sound like gym bunnies, we're really not, but when we don't exercise and do anything for ourselves, and we're both feeling a bit like sluggish, and we argue way more. Like we really do. And because you don't feel good in yourself.
Absolutely.
And then you start to like, I guess, subconsciously put that down to the other person for not giving you the time to do that, because like you've had to like get up on these night shifts and all the rest of it. So he takes his hour out in the morning to do stuff for him, and then come around the weekends he's like, okay, like if you need to
do what you need to do
the morning, then crack on.
But
you've got to think about that person and what makes them happy, because it comes back around.
This is more of an existential question.
Okay.
Let's say looking back to when you first had Alfie.
Yeah.
What would you do, or now that you know, kind of thing, after 2 kids?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have done a bit differently, I guess, within the relationship? Or maybe do something to like do more of or less of? Anything.
I think we were really unprepared when we had Alfie.
Yeah.
As a couple.
Okay.
You know, yeah, okay, it was a pandemic, so that kind of brought on that situation.
Of course.
But going into motherhood was a bit surprising for me. Like I wanted kids. Since I would be that person on the plane that would be so happy to sit next to a baby because I got to hold a baby and help somebody. Like I was so excited for children, and then Alfie came along and obviously loved him to bits. And you know, I didn't experience what's it called, kind of blues.
Yeah, the baby blues or
baby
postnatal.
blues. But
yeah.
I think we kind of like looked at each other 3 months in and was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Like I can't see the light of day. I've barely spoken to you. And I think it scarred Jack a little bit. I think those 6 months, and we had a really bad sleeper. How much of that was brought on by us, I don't know. But he basically didn't sleep until he was 18 months old, and we got in some help. But yeah, I think that's like, so it's quite a trigger for him and I when we have to get up in the middle of the night because Arlo might scream on a one-off. It's like you feel your stomach drop and there's tension between you.
Yeah, that sort of a massive anxiety sets in.
Yeah, and I think those first 3 months of being so unprepared with people around us, I'm not sure what we could have done differently because of the situation in the world at the time and how far away we were from family. But I don't know. I'm not sure you can ever really be prepared about what's to come.
Yeah. And how your relationship would kind of
we
be.
did, like I remember going around 9 months pregnant for a walk in the park, and we would discuss very calmly, you know, what do you think will be your strengths, or where do you think you'll struggle, and how can I help you with that? So like we thought we were all prepared, but
you just never are. Kids have a completely different way of really shocking you in the most wonderful and in the weirdest way possible.
Yeah. And we fully had to learn each other again in a relationship. And I'm not sure anything would change that. I don't know. We just, you're Jack and Carly, you're like, you know, husband and wife, and things are amazing. And then all of a sudden there's this mum and dad dynamic, and children in the next room, and you have no sleep, and I don't know.
You've got no time for yourself. You've got no time for anything, and all of a sudden you're
fighting for time.
Absolutely.
But yet you don't want to take it away from the person that you love most, and you also want to have time. But also you're like, I'm dying over here.
Absolutely.
I need something. So I don't know. No, I'm sadly don't have any words of wisdom other than to say that we were fully in that situation.
It's good to know that. I mean, at the end of the day, there isn't almost like, you know, this is the formula.
Yeah.
You know, use that and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
But I think maybe just to keep an open mind.
And communication.
And to communicate. And I find if somebody was to tell me before having a baby, it was the same. We kind of, I was pre-COVID with Laith. It was, he's 5.5. So we had these like wonderful like conversations about how we were going to parent and how I thought we were completely ready. And I thought that we were going to be the greatest parents. And, you know, that wonderful couple that always spoke to each other and always, you know, when in reality, it really wasn't that way. I mean, of course, he was really very, very supportive at the start. And of course, until now. But I felt like I needed somebody to tell me, Raya, your relationship is completely different and will be completely different. And that's
okay.
It's okay. Just accept it.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling it's okay because when he turns 3 months, we're going to go back to normal.
Yeah.
It's okay. My life will return back.
Yeah.
It completely changed. They was never going to go back to normal.
No,
my life pre-children, including my relationship, is completely different to my life after kids. And that's just the reality.
Yeah, so true.
Somebody needed to tell me that because I felt like no one said anything to me. Nobody told me that I was going to be this tired. Nobody said anything that I was going to, you know, resent Nasser so much for just going to work. Yeah. I mean, the guy is not, you know, in south of France living his life. He's gone to the office and he's probably exhausted when he gets home. Yeah. But I'm so thinking, like, I've been with this baby. I have nobody to talk to. I haven't left the house. I'm too scared. You know, nobody tells you that type of stuff.
No.
And that, I feel, is not, I felt so shortchanged. And I thought, well, I mean, you told me about labor. You told me how to change a nappy and everything, but nobody talked about.
And then you feel like, well, have I married the right person?
Absolutely,
you know, are we in the right relationship?
And then, you sort of internalize all of this. And then, of course, throw in a lovely, you know, constant comparison of Instagram and social media. And you think, well, look at this beautiful, happy couple doing what, and it's all fake.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, I guess it's not
that it's fake, but it might have captured that most beautiful moment.
Because none of us, well, very few of us set up the camera when our kid's having a meltdown and we're in the middle of an argument. And
or at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're frazzled trying to get a baby to sleep.
Exactly. So I guess we don't get the chance to talk about, and this is the point. You do feel like no one really wants to sit down with a friend and like, you'll have a little glass of wine and a gossip of he was really annoying the other day. But no one wants to actually feel like, okay, we actually need some like advice here. We actually need some help, because it makes you feel like less than, or that people are judging your relationship. Absolutely. And I think the more that the struggles are normalized and spoken about, then the less people feel like it's them in a failed marriage. It's just this chapter, and you just kind of work your way around it. And
just having that support. Get that support in. Get, you know,
it takes
for me,
a village.
Absolutely. Listen to this episode. Prepare yourself prior to having children. But no, it's, you know, it really was. I remember my sister and my mom. I've got very, very close girlfriends. You know, it got to a point where I would send them like messages like, this is just not working. Just me and this baby. Like, we are not gelling. And me and Nasser are about to like get divorced at this point. So I need help. And it's just to know that I've sent that message probably at 3 o'clock in the morning. I know that somebody's going to reply back to me at like 8 a.m. That in itself was enough.
And I think you just reminded me of it being in our our first place when we had Alfie, and having arguments because we were exhausted and you know, all the rest of it. And I would say, well, you know, we're just not meant to be together then. You know, we should get divorced.
Yeah, gosh, I feel like I throw that around sometimes. Well, and it's really bad.
Yeah, and he really drew the line at that. He was like, you know what, like we can be going through something, we can like be arguing about something, but don't ever throw that out again. Absolutely. I think I must have said it like 3 or 4 times, and he just really, and he doesn't lose his cool much, but he was like, enough. Yeah. And I've never once since thrown that out there. Because I guess, if you treat something like it's disposable, then it starts to feel more disposable. And so we always try and hold things in like the highest respect in terms of the relationship and what we have.
Just respect and a bit of kindness. It really does.
People are trying their best.
Does change. Okay, so now if you can be completely honest with Jack, if he's sitting right in front of you and you had an honest card and you could use it without him being offended or taking anything to heart, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be negative. It could be completely positive and you don't want to sort of, you know, feed into his ego, whatever it is. What would you tell him?
Ooh, okay. Again, I would say that I'm a very like tactile person. I love that. It's not putting sex aside for the minute. It's like, it's the moments when you're, I don't know, at the sink getting water and someone like comes up behind you and gives you a cuddle. Yeah. And all the things that we used to sleep, I don't know how he's going to hate me for saying this, but we used to sleep holding hands.
Oh, like, so kids. Cute.
He's going to absolutely hate me
for
saying that.
That is the cutest thing.
But, you know, somewhere along the line, and we always used to give each other a kiss before bed. And actually last night's a really good example. We both got into bed and he was on his back was hurting. And I was on my side, and I was like, oh, you know, where's my kiss? And he was like, oh, you come over here. And I was like, no, you come over here.
Like, it's too much.
And it's like, we didn't. I ended up kissing his hand, and like and I'm disappointed that I even did that, because, you know, but it was okay in that situation. Yeah. But there have been times, I guess what I would say to him from my side is like, you know, I miss those little affectionate moments go really far. And it's not something that comes super naturally to him, because that's not the way he needs to receive love himself. But yeah, for me, it's important. And with kids thrown into the mix, it's hard to like upkeep that. But to be fair, you know, for him, it's probably the words of Jack doesn't really have an ego like I would. He's actually very kind of on steady ground, and he's very sure of himself. And then sometimes I forget that actually it doesn't matter if someone's sure of themselves or
They still would love
they still sometimes it's really lovely to say the things that you notice and like the things that they did for you. He always fills up my he'll notice that my car's empty petrol and get Cafu to come and fill it up. And one morning a few weeks ago, he turned around and he was like, "Did you notice I filled up your car?" And I thought, you know what, I did, and I'm so sorry for not saying thank you for that. But like that's his way of like showing those little thoughtful moments. So yeah, I guess for me it would be like be more tactile and like don't those things are important to me, and I'm sure that's probably what he'd say. So
yeah, no, I'm quite the same. I literally had a conversation with him the other day. Like, even if it's just if we're at a dinner table, just to put your arm around me, or I don't know. Yeah, but then those are the moments that, like you said, we don't really have that much time for each other. There's always competing interests. So these tiny little things, you just feel like, oh,
everyone wants to feel like you felt. There's Tony Robbins' book that I read years ago, and it was like, if you can treat that person like you treated them in those first 3 months of a relationship, you'll never fall apart because you do everything for that person. Like they are your forefront. It's not like a selfish thing of what can you do for yourself to make yourself happier. And you go out your way for everything.
Absolutely.
So obviously it's not realistic to be able to uphold that all the time with children, but as close as you can get to that is a really good kind of gauge of, okay, we've got a really good shot here at making this in a really lovely, happy marriage.
Yeah. And then if you've got, let's say, in your opinion, if you've got one thing that you would say, this is the most important thing in a marriage, what would it be? I feel like that's such a fully loaded question.
Yeah, I don't know. A few words come to mind. I'm not sure it's one thing. I think compassion, in
That's
the
a good
sense of
one.
understanding people are always trying their best. I think if you can look at things with like rose-colored glasses, you'll fare much better. And trying to kind of see the good in what people are doing, and what your better half is doing. I think compromise. I was reading this book the other day, I can't remember where it came from, but it was saying how a woman, I hate this example, to be honest, because it feels actually very old school and not super modern, but it was an example of a woman saying to her husband, like, can you clean up the dishes? Like, can you just help me tidy up the kitchen? And he does. He tidies up the kitchen to the level that he thinks it's tidy. And in her view, that's not tidy enough. In his view, he did his best job. Why is she getting angry? Because he's done something nice. And you kind of end up in this horrible
disagreement. Yeah.
And I think the compromise is that, like, if it was so important to her that, like, it's one of the things she holds most dearly to, like, have that little bit of help to tidy up those plates away, and he was indifferent about it, the compromise should fall on him to say, you know what, this is so important to her. I'm going to give, like, over and beyond what I believe is tidy, because I know how important it is to that person.
That's right.
And there are some things which I know Jack holds of, like, great importance that kind of annoy me, but I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to, like, compromise on this because I know it means a lot to him. And that happens like 1,000 times a day, and that will never not happen. And I think compromise is the big one, and I do think appreciation and being seen.
Yeah.
The minute you stop appreciating the little bits, like, that person just they're going to stop doing them.
Absolutely.
Because they're not going to, like, feel good about it, and it's those little things day to day that make home such a happy place and make you feel so full and appreciated.
Yeah.
So.
And if you were to give parents or soon to be parents 3 top tips,
gosh,
to kind of get on with life after, or to baby proof their relationship, what would be, like, the 3 top tips?
Surround yourself with like-minded friends. We've taken a while to, like, find the friendships that
gel well.
Yeah. And they have such a big impact on how you parent and how you go about your relationships. I think, they say sum total of the 5 people you hang out with, but I think that's more true in a marriage and with children. This summer we're going away with, you've had her on the podcast,
yes,
Harriet.
Of course. she's so lovely.
And we're quite similar in the way we parent and the way our relationships are. And I think it brings out the best. It keeps us helping improving that relationship.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
To have that, because then it's very much a positive and supportive
100%.
Environment.
And everyone brings something to the table. And I read this the other day, or I read that, and you know that they are sharing that piece of advice because they love you and they want the best for you, not because they're trying to critique or judge you.
Absolutely.
Baby proof, keep having sex. I think if you let that go completely and you disregard it as important in a relationship, sure, it works for some couples, but I think majority of the time you'll find yourself in a situation where the intimacy starts to crumble and maybe someone searched for that intimacy elsewhere. And that's the saddest.
And it's quite hard to bring it back if it's...
Yeah. It is. Sometimes it's not easy to like discuss intimacy.
And the thing is, I find that in itself is a complete whole another topic of conversation. And it's something that you can really talk about, intimacy, when after you've had children, because it really does change. Yeah. And there are, everybody, gets into a point where you've just had a baby, you're exhausted, you're sleep deprived, you're fending for life, basically.
And you've given everything.
And that's it. And, it becomes quite difficult to get your brain to switch on. And I get that. And I this is definitely something I need to explore on another episode as well, because it is a huge one. And I feel lots of people struggle with that type of thing.
Yeah, I think it was a movie that I was watching, and it showed a scene of a husband and wife where the wife, husband wanted to be intimate that night, and he kind of went to make some moves, but the wife didn't reciprocate immediately. So then he was kind of like, well,
as if he's been rejected.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that feeling, I think, for men especially, of rejection in that space is quite blocking, and it puts them off kind of trying again. But I think sometimes as a mother, when you're totally burnt out and you just can't like take on any more mental load of like having to say yes to this, say no to this, sometimes you actually just like want that decision to be taken away from you with permission.
Yes.
But, like, it's kind of like,
I just don't want to think about anything.
Like I may not be in the mood right the second, but maybe in 20 seconds I will be. If we kind of like, and it's just, we need to not take it as like a personal rejection, but at the same time, sometimes, even if you don't feel like it, I think it's if it's important to that person, maybe you need to compromise.
Absolutely.
Like, and I think maintaining that is really important. Esther Perel, a really wonderful relationship expert, said like, it's not about how many times you have sex, but it's just about making sure that when you do have it, it is still a great experience and like on like a really on a level that you both feel satisfied by and all the rest of it. I think maintaining intimacy and I guess communication and finding that time for one another, having things to enjoy outside of each other is important, because then you get that mental switch off. Because I know that if I go in, I don't know, I started playing netball after I had Alfie, something I did back in school and I loved it. And I knew my son was happy and safe with his dad and he was having the best time, and I got to do something for me, and in return Jack can, whatever, play golf on the occasion and switch off there. So I think that was about 4 things. But
it's good. It's good. I mean, these are, I feel like what you touched on should be the basis of all relationships. But sometimes it's nice to get a little bit of a reminder. And then, at the end of the day, if there isn't a reminder, go see somebody that can remind, Yeah,
absolutely.
A couple. Yeah.
Or speak to someone. Like, I think therapy it had this like really
negative thing when it's not.
No, it's not. And so many, I think the conversation around therapy is really changing.
Absolutely.
That everyone should, within your means, have a therapist or have a friend in that capacity that you can speak to. And I think it's so helpful.
Yeah.
Men too, which I think men are starting to
get on board a little bit more.
Like open up a bit more. And I know that's a big generalization. Maybe that's not.
I think there's this a huge thing that couples counseling or therapy is like what you would do at the end.
Yes.
When it shouldn't be.
No,
like why would you want to wait right at the end? Yeah. Gosh, Carly, thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. I hope, I hope there was some.
Honestly, I mean, even for me, listening to you, it makes me sort of check in with myself, in my head when I'm asking you the things that you guys do to, show each other that you're seen and heard. It's like I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I should probably make that mental note today or this evening. It's helpful. I find people's experiences, you putting it out there and talking about it is just going to help others regardless.
100%.
So I really appreciate you doing this, and I feel like I hope I didn't get too deep.
No, it was. It's my pleasure. I think
your personal life and your marriage.
I know. I think we all self-reflection is really valuable, and you got to keep growing. And both of you as a couple have got to put in that time to develop and listen to podcasts. And Harriet actually have a nice ritual where they'll send each other a podcast once a week that they should both listen to.
I hope they're sending It Takes a Village.
Yeah, exactly. They will be. That are things that are of interest to them, because it's important that the other person understands that. And I just thought that was a really lovely kind of actionable tip that I learned from a friend, a few weeks back. So
that's a really good one.
Yeah, I think the more we communicate, the better it ends up.
Absolutely. Easier said than done, but trying as best as possible.
Thank you, Raya. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. But I usually start the interview with a quote, and I like to end it with one, but not from me, from the guests.
Okay.
Have you got one for us today?
I have, but it's stolen. Is that allowed?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't have to be an original one.
I was reading
just something that you like, that you resonate with.
I was reading Jay Shetty's book, Eight Rules of Love, and the opening chapter has a quote, and it says, "If you like a flower, you pick it. But if you love a flower, I want to say nurture it or water it daily."
Yeah.
And it's a metaphor for if you like a flower and you're attracted to its beauty, then you want some of that beauty for yourself and you kind of pick it away. But if you really love something and you fall in love with all aspects of it and love watching it grow and love watching it bloom, every single day you pay attention to it and you water it. And I think that is a really good metaphor for relationships and marriage, that it's not a once in a blue moon check-in. It is the everyday things that make a difference and help things not build up into a negative spiral if there is something going on there that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
So, I'm actually going to see his event in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I heard he's in the opera,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. No, it'll be good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time out. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to They Say It Takes a Village. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to bringing you another one next week. Don't forget, please subscribe, rate, and review so I can reach and help even more parents. And if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover, please head over to my Instagram page, ittakesavillage.me, and drop me a line.